cross, Robbie Earl! Oh, he met it so well. And Whitmore! Theodore Whitmore. Got absent without leave. This is Whitmore. Hall and Gale both available. It's still Whitmore. And it's now 2-0.
Welcome once more to Football from Yard. Today we look at the performance of the Reggae Boyz in the recently concluded friendly international against the United States. The Reggae Boyz lost by a 4-1 margin, with Jamaica's goal coming courtesy of Jamal Lowe on his international debut. As expected, the Jamaican team was not cohesive in attack but looked stable on the defensive end, prior to Coach Theodore Whitmore making mass substitutions. And although the result is of interest to the entire Reggae Boyz fan base, more importantly, Theodore Whitmore was able to see a number of new recruits to the side from both the British and local-based player pools. Coach Whitmore fielded what certainly would be considered the strongest unit based on the players who were available to him. We have to keep in mind that a number of players were currently unavailable, such as Andre Blake, Kemar Lawrence, Shamar Nicholson, and Damian Lowe, who are currently at odds with the Jamaica Football Federation over compensation. With that said, let's focus on the players who were on the pitch and the starting lineup for the night, and also the substitutes and their performance. For the starting lineup, Jamaica had a young 20-year-old Cavalier FC keeper Jadine White in goal. In the central defensive duo, there were two new recruits. Liam Moore from Reading FC, he used to play with West Morgan at Leicester. Ethan Pinnock from Brentford in the English Championship. Another recruit, Amari Bell from Blackburn Rovers, played at left back. And at right back was long-time player and current Bristol City player Adrian Mariappa, who served as the captain for the day. Playing right in front of the defence was a combination of Michael Hector, the Fulham FC player, and Kevon Isaac from Mount Pleasant. Ahead of them was the recent recruit Casey Palmer, who's a teammate of Adrian Mariappa. On the right wing, you had Ricardo Morris of Portmore United. On the left flank was Jamal Lowe from Swansea City. Lowe was the goal scorer on the night. And leading the line was Andre Gray from Watford in the English Championship. Both Lowe and Gray were new recruits making their international debut. In the first half, the USA dominated possession, particularly focusing on their left flank, the Jamaican right flank. However, for the most part, with that exception, the Jamaican team looked very stable. Despite looking disjointed going forward, the Jamaican team was able to create a number of dangerous attacks. The boys were competitive again in the second half, leading to the goal from Jamal Lowe. The goal was a result of some good work from both Lowe and Andre Gray, starting from the Reggae Boyz' own half and ending with Lowe scoring from an acute angle on the right side of the 6-yard box. I'll focus this review largely on the individual players who started in the game, largely due to the haphazard selection process for this squad, given the impasse between the Jamaica Football Federation and the majority of the players that were playing prior to this game. Most of the players scored relatively low, but there were a couple standouts on the night. Young Jadine White in goal would receive a 5. The 20-year-old Cavalier FC keeper looks like a player who hasn't played in a long time, which he hasn't. He had a couple poor clearances, but generally was very good with his hands. There isn't much more he could have done on any of the goals. He'll definitely, though, need to find himself either in a professional setting or require the Jamaican League to restart if he plans to make a push into the national squad during qualifiers. Ethan Pinnock, the new recruit from Brentford, is someone I would probably give a 6. He looks very strong in defence for the most part, and while not as commanding as his cousin Nairo Nosworthy, he certainly has a very commanding presence on the field. He was strong in the air and looked very comfortable with the ball at his feet. He would have scored higher for me, except for getting beaten badly when he overplayed the US forward on their second goal. He looks to be an excellent addition to the squad, and somebody who's going to give Damian Lowe a challenge for the starting position in central defence. Liam Moore, I would score as a 7. The Reading player formed a very strong central defensive partnership with Pinnock. Moore went into tackles very hard, and I think he's one who will be quickly appreciated by the Jamaican fans, given his style. Something to keep an eye on, though, is that he seems to play a little bit too deep on occasions instead of stepping up to tackle. but overall he seems to be somebody who'll be a solid addition to the squad, and again, with Pinnock and Lowe, would be in contention for two of the starting positions in central defence. I would score Adrian Mariappa as a 6, the experienced man from Bristol City, captained the team on the night. The right side of the team had a hard time coping with Serginho Dest from Barcelona and Christian Pulisic from Chelsea. Mariappa clearly still has good aerial presence, good instincts, but is clearly half a step slow. He looked vulnerable against pace. However, on the other hand, he had a couple strong runs going forward and whipped in some dangerous crosses as well. Amari Bell scores a 6. The Blackburn Rovers man had a decent showing on his debut. For the most part, he was stable, but on one or two occasions he looked a little shaky under pressure. But I think he looks like somebody who will provide solid cover at the left-back position in the event Kemar Taxi Lawrence is unavailable, or recent Scottish-based addition Greg Lay struggles to recover from his injuries. Moving to the midfield, Kevon Isaacs had score out of 4. The Mount Pleasant midfielder was given the job of partnering with Michael Hector in the central midfield. His year of inactivity due to the closure of the local league showed, as he struggled to keep up with the pace of play on both the attacking and defensive side. Particularly as the game went on, he clearly wasn't fit. To the extent he is fit, he can maybe be a peripheral player in the squad heading into World Cup qualifiers. His partner in the midfield, Michael Hector, I'd score at the 5, slightly higher. This game was a classic Michael Hector game. In parts, you saw why Chelsea signed him years ago. On the other hand, it was evident why he's been on the bench for Fulham recently. He had a number of timely interceptions, breaking up plays, but also had some poor giveaways and fouls in dangerous areas. Hector, I think, will continue to provide a good option in defence, but with the addition of Moore and Pinnock into the central defensive mix, he probably makes more sense in the midfield at this moment in time. Ricardo Morris had scored a 5. The Portmore United man had a few dangerous moments going forward, but generally looked unable to keep pace with the USA players. It wasn't helped by the fact that he hasn't played football in a year, and he was playing also against the USA's left wing, which consisted of Pulisic and Dest. He was pretty much winded after the first 30 minutes, and I think if the Jamaican local league restarts and he can get himself back to full fitness, then he may prove to be a useful option off of the bench for Coach Whitmore. Otherwise, I think he's on the outside looking into the squad. On the opposite flank, I'd give Jamal Lowe a 7. The Swansea City man was one of the better attacking players on the night and was able to score on his international debut with a lovely finish from an acute angle. He showed a couple good combination plays with forward Andre Gray. While Lowe doesn't really have the blazing speed of some wingers that allows him to separate from players or the cleanest touch, he's clearly crafty and shows a willingness to push forward. He also showed, as he has in his career in England so far, that he's able to finish chances he gets. His performance, I think, would certainly put him in contention for a starting role on the opposite flank of winger Leon Bailey. If Coach Whitmore decides to play Bobby Reid on the flank, then in that case Lowe provides a good option off the bench. Casey Palmer in the attacking midfield position, I'd give a 6. Bristol City man made his debut and gave a solid showing. He has pretty good ball control and a solid technique. However, he isn't the fastest player and doesn't move a lot off the ball. It's likely though that he's behind Daniel Johnson and Ravel Morrison in the pecking order, two players who themselves are also recent additions to the team. All in all, I think he showed well, and he definitely should be a member of the squad going forward. Forward Andre Gray, I would give a 7. The Watford man put in a solid shift for the team. His hold-up play was exceptional, and his movement off the ball was pretty good. And given the fact that he was isolated for much of the night, he put in a decent performance, and also combined well with Jamal Lowe for the goal. He isn't the most pacey player, but his movement is very crafty. While I don't see him pushing Shamar Nicholson out of the starting position, I do think he provides some good depth at that position. None of the substitutes in particular stood out. Curtis Tilt wasn't particularly impressive. Ronaldo Wellington didn't really have enough time in the game. Omar Holness was not particularly impressive. Jabari Hilton had a couple of dangerous runs, and he's a youngster in the local league who may have some potential down the line. Luca Levy looked to be off the pace at this level of play, and Shivani Willis was a little bit too casual and didn't really look to be up to match fitness. All in all, I think the coaching staff would be happy that this game provided them with the opportunity to identify a number of players that can be key additions to the starting lineup of the team or can fill out the squad going forward. Thank you for tuning in to Football from Yard once again. Talk to you next time.
Cross, Robbie! Oh, he met it so well. And Whitmore! Theodore Whitmore. Gone absent without leave. This is Whitmore. Hall and Gale both available. It's still Whitmore. And it's now 2-0.